Welcome to episode 72 of the Women of Faith in Leadership podcast. And today I'm talking to you about one-on-one meetings, those tough conversations, those crucial conversations that leaders sometimes just don't want to have because why? They're tough and we don't know what to do or we don't know what to say. And more often than not, we're scared that the person's going to explode on the other side and then we don't know what to deal with or what to do and how to deal with that situation. So yes, in today's episode, I'll give you some strategies and tips that you can follow and implement that will really help you. And I trust that at the end of this episode, you're going to feel more equipped to do those one-on-one meetings that you've been avoiding. Let's jump in. Leading as a woman is tough, but leading as a woman of faith is next level. However, it doesn't have to be that way. God has called you into this leadership role because He says you are worthy. You are His child, and if He qualifies you, who in this world can unqualify you? You might suffer from imposter syndrome and believe you're not good enough, but God says you are good enough. Hi, I'm Rika, Whelan, Christian leader and workplace culture coach, and together we're going to navigate leadership with faith as our foundation. Let's get started. Grab your coffee or water, keep that notebook and pen handy, and let's jumpstart your leadership. So one of the reasons why people really do not like those one-on-one meetings is because, number one, you just don't know how the other person's going to react, and therefore you just avoid the situation altogether. Or you're worried that you are going to get caught in a space where, the person lashes back and then you just don't know how to react. So I'm very much like that. I need to think about something before I can do it. And I struggle sometimes to think on my feet. Okay, so I've had to come up with strategies on how to get over that, because you sometimes do have to think on your feet and you sometimes do have to be in the moment, have something to say. You can't always postpone those meetings or say, hey, I'll get back to you in 10 minutes when I've finally thought about a comeback. No, that's not how it works. So yes, one-on-one meetings, and I'm pretty sure you've heard the term crucial conversations. It's a terminology that a company came up with to talk about those one-on-one tough meetings and conversations that you have to have. Now, I also did the crucial conversations training, so I will be using a couple of strategies from there, but also some strategies from my personal experience on what you can do to have these tough conversations. Now, the first question, I'm going to pose it into like a question answer type episode today. And the first one is, do you have to have tough conversations? The answer is yes, you absolutely do have to have tough conversations. And yes, you absolutely do have to have one-on-one meetings with your team. One-on-one meetings does not always have to be just negative. I think that is a perception that leaders, but also employees have, that if you've got a one-on-one meeting with the boss, then you're in trouble. So my first challenge to you would be to change that perception. And the only way you can change that perception is by having one-on-one meetings with your team that is non-related to performance. So a good way that you can implement that is when you've got a new team member that comes on board, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, and 6 months after they have started at your organization or in your department, you do a follow-up meeting. And those follow-up meetings, you ask specific questions to see how they're settling in. How is everything going? Is everything that is in the onboarding training, is it still relevant? Is there anything that they wish they knew before they started, or anything that you need to add to the training that was missing? So by normalizing these one-on-one meetings, it will become easier for everyone to have these meetings. So when you're called into a meeting with the boss, i.e. you say yourself, then then they don't think they're in trouble and you don't have to get super duper nervous every single time when you speak to people one-on-one. Now, obviously, you might get nervous when it is performance related and you don't know how the person's going to react. But number one, start normalizing one-on-one meetings. So why should you have these one-on-one meetings? Well, the most obvious one is the one we already discussed, and that is performance management. However, there are actually many other reasons why you should be having one-on-one conversations not relating to performance management, and that is for connection purposes and support purposes. So I'm going to mention accountability as well, but let me talk about connection and support first. So when your team connects with you and knows that you support them, they're more likely to open up to you when they are going through a really tough time or when they actually need support. When you're the only person, or when you only speak to them when there's a performance management issue or when they've done something wrong, they're not likely to come to you for support because they know that they can't rely on you. Remember, it's trust. We're human beings, and human beings thrive on trust. We want to trust the people that we work with. And so for connection and support purposes, if you meet with your team one-on-one, offer any support, ask them if they're okay, how was their onboarding training, how was their PD, the professional development that they attended last week, you can ask them, can you give me a rundown of that? Would you like to present a summary of that to the team next week at our team meeting? Whatever it might be, but definitely for connection and support purposes. As leaders, we can get really, really busy. So it's sometimes tricky for us to connect with our team. Maybe you do a walkthrough of the office every single morning and you say hello to everyone, you talk to them. But remember, it's in a group setting. So people act differently when they're in a group versus when they're one-on-one with you. So if you've never met with your team one-on-one, then the first couple of times are going to be awkward. But it's okay. So I would persist if I were you. The first, like I mentioned, maybe the first couple of times are going to be awkward, but then keep them short. Do 5 to 10 minutes max. Have specific questions that you ask. Explain to them why you are doing these one-on-one meetings. Because if it's a new concept, if it's something that they've never done with you before, they're also going to get suspicious. So definitely mention to them that you're implementing these one-on-one meetings from a connection and support perspective. You know that it's new and it might feel as if it's too time consuming or if that people don't have the time for that. But it is actually very, very important to you from a connection and support perspective that you connect with them. You want to be a better leader and you want to support them. So usually if you come from an angle like that, people will be like, oh, wow, yeah, that sounds interesting. I really like that idea. Why? Because you are showing that they're a valued member of the team and that you value them so much that you're willing to give up your time to meet with them on a one-on-one basis. Now, yes, I do understand that if you've got a big team, like 50 to 100 people, maybe you've even got 750 people, you're the CEO and there's so many people. What I would suggest in that instance is that you then set aside some time in your calendar, 1 week every 6 months. Or 1 week maybe every year. Every year is a bit stretching it. I feel like that's getting to that point of, oh yeah, she only sees us once a year for our annual performance reviews. So not so great. It's got a bit of a bad connotation to it. But obviously if you can't, then you can't. So maybe 1 week every 6 months you set aside, you ask your assistant if you've got one, or you do it yourself where you organize these one-on-one meetings. Now remember, every one-on-one meeting doesn't have to go on for an hour. It can only be 10 to 15 minutes, maybe with a 5-minute gap in the middle. So you're scheduling every meeting for every 20 minutes, whereas your meeting goes, and then there's like a 5-minute where people can arrive and leave. So that's the logistically how I've made it work in the past, especially if I need to talk to a lot of people. If I've done my annual performance reviews at the end of the year, then I schedule it for an hour. Sometimes I don't talk to them for a whole hour, but I have prepared exactly what I want to say. I've got their results from their annual performance review handy. And then if there's a 15-minute gap in between, then it gives me a breather, because I used to see 6 to 7 people on any given day. So, and that's over a week period then. So I had got quite a big team, and some of them were permanent staff and some of them were relief or casual staff. So to try and fit it all in with everybody's availability could have been tough as well. Sometimes it even went into a second week, which I was absolutely fine with. So just have a look at your schedule. If you feel like you absolutely can't meet with everyone individually, what I would suggest then is that you empower your leadership team, that they meet with their team one-on-one on a regular basis and then report it back to you. So that when you do eventually have your annual one-on-one with that person, at least you've been kept up to date with what's going on in that person's professional but also personal life. And in that way, if you flick an email to that person and say, hey, I'm really sorry to hear that your father passed away, thinking of you, then that person thinks, oh, wow, I'm not just a number here. The CEO or this head of department actually knows who I am and cares for me. So I'm a valued person of the team. So one-on-one meetings shouldn't be underestimated, because people really feel that sense of value and importance when you give up your valuable time for them. Now, the two things that I already mentioned as well, which must be mentioned, is the reason why we have them is performance management and accountability. Now, accountability meetings can be as quick as, hey, I noticed yesterday that, you remember that thing we spoke about a week ago where we decided to change the policy or the procedure on this, and I noticed that you still managed to do it in the incorrect way. So just a quick reminder, do you need me to go through it with you? Do you need any help with that? Because if you do it like that from a support perspective, that accountability, then they're more likely to come to the plate and say, okay, yes, I have to, next time I have to remember. They'll apologize to you, hopefully, and they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I forgot again. Thanks for the reminder. But those accountability meetings or those reminders are so, so, so crucial. Please, 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 I beg you, do not just flick them an email every single time for accountability purposes. It is impersonal. You can maybe flick them an email after to say just a reminder or just a quick summary. This is what we spoke about today. Then they've got it in writing. However, you have to do it verbally, because it's from a relationship perspective, verbal is better than in writing. Of course, then from an accountability perspective, if that still doesn't work and they still don't want to do what they're meant to be doing, then it will lead to performance management. And then this will be a tougher conversation, because you have to performance manage the person for not doing what they're meant to be doing. Okay. And so I've got a whole episode on performance management that you can go and listen to. And that is episode 36. So please go and have a look at episode 36, Performance Management 101, where I speak to you quite in depth on how to handle the situation of performance management and what you could do, and the steps you need to follow for performance management. Okay, so the next question that I have is how to prepare for these tough conversations or these one-on-ones. Now, look, not every one-on-one is going to be a tough conversation. Some of them might be easy and like you might not even have to prepare for them. But in the circumstances where you feel like you have to have a tough conversation with someone, let's say it's unrelated to performance management, and something's happened and this person, okay, let me use an example of something that I've been through. So someone had gone through a pretty tough thing in their personal life. They did not come and share it with everyone at work because they didn't feel like they wanted to air their dirty laundry, which I understand, but it can be quite tough sometimes if people want support from at work, but they're not willing to share what happened. And so this person obviously wanted to have some privacy over the thing that happened, and which is fine, but they were clearly not fine about it. Nobody knew what was going on except this one person. Now, this one person came to me and said to me, look, Rika, in confidence, I have to tell you this because I feel as if, this person who told me that, their performance or their, it wasn't related to performance management, but it was more about a relationship and relationship breakdown. So they were breaking their relationships with their colleagues because they were going through this tough thing. So all the hard work of building those relationships, they ended up saying things that they really shouldn't be saying, and like breaking up those relationships. So she came to me, or this person came to me and said basically that I'm really worried, but I need to tell you this because I don't want them to say things or do things that they'll regret later on. And I can see that some of the other team members are getting hurt by this. And so obviously I had to call this person in, have that tough conversation. And I just called the person in and I said, look, I've noticed that you are a little bit out of sorts today. Some of the, I can feel there's a bit of tension going on. And so this person said, no, I'm fine. And I said, no, I'm so glad to hear that you're fine. But, what can I ask you? Are you okay? And there was a bit of wavering. Should they tell me? Should they not tell me? I'm thinking. And they didn't tell me. So they didn't want to tell me what was going on. And I said, look, my door's always open to you. You can always come to me and ask me, tell me anything. Remember, I'm here for you. But, if you go back to the team now, can I ask you that, if you feel really frustrated or irritated with the team, maybe instead of saying something that you're going to regret later on, how about you just take a break? I'm more than willing to give you the rest of the day off if you feel like that will help you as well. I understand you would like some privacy about this issue because you don't want to share with me. But just remember, my door's always open and you can always come and chat to me. So the person didn't really say or do anything. They just didn't even say thank you. They just went back. And so the same situation happened again later in the day. And but at that point in time, I had actually been a little bit closer by, and I witnessed actually the irritatedness from this person towards the other team member, as to a point where it was kind of rude, and I knew that something had to happen. So I pulled the person aside, and I said, look, but this time I didn't take them to my office. So I decided, instead of having that one-on-one conversation in such a formal setting, I actually took them to a place where there was a bench overlooking the beautiful bay. And so there was this beautiful bay. It was a sunshine day, and you could just look over this beautiful ocean bay. And I just said to the person, look, what I just saw is not you. That's not your personality. You're clearly out of sorts today. I'm here if you want to talk to me about it, but otherwise, I do think you need to go home for the day. Maybe you need to go and have a rest. Maybe you need to go and deal with whatever's going on. And I think because I did that, the person finally opened up to me and they told me what was going on. They had a little cry. And, that could have been a potentially very tough conversation for either one of us, because I didn't want to push that person, but they clearly didn't want to talk about that. But it was tough. It was definitely a tough conversation that I had to have. And because I didn't take it personal, because I thought to myself, well, this is that person's issue, not my issue, because sometimes as leader, we take on other people's problems, we make it our own. And then, we do tend to take things personal when somebody says something that hurts our feelings. So, yeah, I just really spoke to that person about, okay, what's going on and how can I support you in this? But if it's not a conversation like that, it is actually performance management, then what you need to do is you do need to prepare. Preparation is going to be absolutely key. Please go and listen to episode 36. That gives you a lot more detail. But basically, you do need to prepare. Remember, when we get into a stressful situation, fight, flight, or freeze happens in our brain. And so I have fought with people as well in these meetings, purely because my brain and my body was disconnected from each other. Why? Because I didn't prepare well. This person got defensive, and then I got defensive, and then it really just went all pear-shaped. Okay. So I've learned to prepare really, really well before these conversations. Have notes handy so that if the person goes on a tangent, because remember, people can go like, yes, but what about this? And I'm not the only one. That person does that, and this person. Stick to the notes. Stick to what you've prepared. Even if they say about, well, yes, but I'm not the only one. This person does it. Then you say, thank you very much. I'll deal with that at a different meeting. But let's stick to the topic at hand, which is this behavior or this thing that you've done. So being prepared is going to be really crucial for you because it's going to make you feel really confident in your own abilities. But to prepare really well will also help you when you do get into that stressful situation. I cannot tell you how often I've had to be in these difficult situations where my notes, I would literally be reading my notes. Make eye contact with the person as if I'm reading a book every now and again, because I would stumble over my words. I would say the wrong thing because I was just so nervous about how this person was going to react. And so I just sometimes read my notes. And I would even say before the time, look, I'm just going to read my notes here because I want to make sure that I don't forget anything. I think this is an extremely important meeting, and therefore I've written down what I wanted to say because it's crucial that we cover all these important things. Then I just read my notes. So nothing wrong with that. And so the last thing then is, what do you do if it goes pear-shaped? What do you do? What do you do if this one-on-one meeting goes pear-shaped? Well, what you need to do is recognize the fact that it's gone pear-shaped. So don't push the envelope. Don't push it. If you see that things are going not well, stop the meeting. So what you're going to do is you're going to say something like, okay, before we carry on, I can see that you're getting really upset. Or you can say something like, look, before we carry on, I can feel myself getting really frustrated in this moment. I don't mean to do that, but this is my body's natural reaction. So I think we need to stop the meeting. Or, if it's about them, they get really defensive and upset and they, whatever it might be. Then you can say, look, I can see you're getting really upset over this topic. It must mean quite a lot to you. So you're affirming them. It must mean quite a lot to you. So look, how about we gather our thoughts for the next 24 hours? Go and make some notes. Go put those thoughts and feelings that you're feeling right now down on paper. I'm going to do the same. And then when we come back tomorrow, we can share notes. We can share with each other, why are we getting so upset? What about the situation is so important to us? And why do we feel this is unfair, if that's the case? So break it up for 24 hours and say, affirm them and say, look, I can see this is really important to you, but I do feel like we need to take a break. This has happened to me in the past when I was doing annual performance reviews and I had to speak to the person about something. They got visibly upset in the meeting because I was speaking to them about something that they had to improve. Now, it wasn't a major thing, but they were not used to getting any of that type of feedback because they'd actually done really well. So obviously I'm great at giving constructive feedback, but this person was doing really well. And so something had happened, obviously, again, in their personal life or whatever the reason might be, and they slipped up, just like we all do. We all make mistakes, right? So I had to speak to the person about that, and they got upset over it. Now, it was at the end of the year, and there was no opportunity for me to speak to this person again in that same year. So what I did and said was, look, I can see you getting visibly upset. My intention is not to upset you with this. My intention is for this to give constructive feedback. Maybe I've made the mistake of not giving you more constructive feedback so that you're more used to it. But this is important. This is my job as the leader, is to give you constructive feedback because I care for you and I want you to grow professionally. But because you're getting upset, and I completely respect and understand why, how about we reconvene at the beginning of next year? Because remember, it was now Christmas time. How about we reconvene at the beginning of next year when both of us have had our holiday, when both of us feel refreshed, and then we'll come back and we'll come and talk. However, please, I don't want you to top over this or to worry about this over the Christmas holidays. I just want you to go and enjoy it with your family. This isn't by no means meant to be a negative. Please see my heart in this. I care for you and I just want you to improve professionally. And so we broke it up, that the person still left crying. And then the next year, which was literally maybe 14 days or 13 days later, maybe even less, they came back and they were a little bit more refreshed. They were a little bit more open-minded. I had an opportunity to think about it. And then when we did come back and talk about it, things went well. Things actually went extremely well. And, I could ask the person to say, have you had an opportunity to reflect on what happened? Do you see that, this is coming from a place of developing you and equipping you as a leader? And so, yeah, we had a really good conversation about it. Again, like I prepare extremely well for those annual performance review meetings, but you never know. You never know when something's going to go pear-shaped or who's going to react when. And just remember that their reaction is on them. It's not on you, unless you really triggered them, unless like you were purposefully trying to trigger them to get upset, then it's on you. But if you did the right thing by preparing well, giving that constructive feedback, having regular one-on-one meetings, and they still manage to get upset, then break it up and just say, look, I can see you're getting upset and everything that I just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, and then just meet again and make sure you're more prepared. When they come in, ask them if they've got any notes. And say, you can read off your notes. I don't mind if you want to read off your notes. That's absolutely fine. I'll probably be reading off my notes as well. So yeah, so if things go pear-shaped, just stop the meeting. There's no point in carrying on with that meeting if things are just going to go pear-shaped and you guys are going to scream at each other across the table or whatever that might be. So please don't do that. We definitely don't want a screaming battle at all. And please start doing those regular one-on-one meetings. They're very, very important and very crucial. And keep notes. So one thing that I would highly recommend is like a OneNote document. Or, I mean, if you don't use Microsoft, if you use a different software, you can use, I use on Apple Mac, I like to use the Notes app. So on the Notes app, I've got like all my podcast episodes, like each and every episode and what I plan on saying in the episode, and the structure of the episode and X, Y, and Z. So, each of them go like that. But it's very similar to OneNote, which is what I kept when I was still in my director's role. So OneNote, every single person that worked for me had their own little, it had their own note and section. And so then every single time when I had those one-on-one meetings, I would just say the date and a quick summary of what we discussed. I would even maybe put the emails in there as well, if it was relevant to that meeting. So that's just a quick way for you to keep documentation on when you're speaking with your staff. And remember, when it comes to performance management, you'll see in that episode, if you go and listen to it, that documentation is key, absolutely key when it comes to performance management. Okay, so I hope that episode helped you to know what to do in one-on-one conversations, to start thinking about the fact that you should be having one-on-one conversations, what you can do when it goes pear-shaped, and how to prepare for them, because they are so important. Now, please come and join the Facebook group, womenoffaithinleadership.com. I'd love to have you there, or on Facebook, Women of Faith in Leadership. And come and connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like to follow my content. I'm mainly on there. I am in the Facebook group and I am on LinkedIn. I do have my business, the Workplace Culture Hub, which is on Facebook as well. Not very active, I'll be honest. And then I'm on Instagram as well as Rika Whelan. So come and follow me wherever you are. And I look forward to connecting with you, in particular in the Facebook group, because that's where I'd really just like to build a community of women that are, Christians who are in leadership roles. So if you've got a listener question, you can also send that to me. So if you go to womenoffaithinleadership.com, it'll take you to the podcast website. And there's two ways you can send a listener question to me. So one is via writing. So there's a text box where you can add your name, your email address, and there's a text box so you can pop your question in there. Alternatively, you can send me a voice note. So a brand new on my website is what's called a speak pipe, where you can ask your question verbally and then you'll be featured on my podcast. So I'll play your question and then I'll answer it on the show. And then finally, you can of course email me at support@rikawhelan.com. I look forward to connecting with you and speaking with you again in the next episode. Bye. So much for listening. If this podcast blessed you in some way, the number one way you can thank me is by leaving a review. Your feedback means the world to me and lights me up every single time when I read it, and it makes me want to keep going. So please leave a review, and your review will also help other Christian women in leadership find the answers they are looking for. So whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the review section and leave that review.
Then head over to womenoffaithinleadership.com and join our free Facebook community, and I look forward to engaging with you there.